Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tavern. I'm your Dapper Bard, today with another Tavern tale. This time we're looking at the Astrology sign of Scorpio. The sign of Scorpio is tied to a very interesting Greek hero. But first, let's discuss the astrology side, because that's how we do these videos. Scorpios are a water sign. They are the second water sign after the Cancer. Smell the crab claw. This is a sign that basically is focused heavily on emotions, and the Scorpio is no exception to this rule. Scorpios have a lot of positive traits. They can be determined, focused, compassionate, empathic, fearless, especially against trauma and life difficulties. They can also have some other interesting traits, such as having a lot of energy, loving things that are intense and fun and vibrant. They have a strong sense of the spiritual world. They're oftentimes looking for answers both to spiritual and mundane questions, and oftentimes show a lot of interest in people they meet. That being said, there are some major negatives to this sign. Like most water signs, you're going to have some really interesting things because your traits are so heavily emotionally focused. First off, you can be very obstinate and very, very stubborn, especially about the things you have decided to focus upon, even to the detriment of others. Or, worse yet, detriment to the self. In addition to that, your compassion and empathy can oftentimes allow you to see the worst parts of the world. So you'll tend to be a bit more pessimistic, nihilistic, and even deal with bouts of depression. There's also the issues of trust. Because you are so emotionally focused, you're also afraid of being emotionally hurt. So paranoia and mistrust can definitely be problems you can face as a Scorpio. If you are upset, if someone has wronged you, you have a strong propensity for vengeance. And if you have information on someone, you will utilize that. You will manipulate them, or you will break them down emotionally. Very similar to the Virgo, using your perceived weaknesses and nitpicking you to death, a Scorpio can use your emotional weaknesses and nitpick you to death. So if you are dating or connected to a Scorpio, try not to make them too angry. And if you're a Scorpio, try to be aware of those negative traits and to try to control them to be a better person. One last thing to note about the personality type for the Scorpio. Their love of intensity also can be a love of danger. Scorpios have a tendency of putting themselves in harm's way, whether in relationships or in terms of personal hobbies or adventures that they get into. So just keep that in mind to try to have someone to reel you back when you've decided to go a little too far. Overall, the Scorpio is a really interesting sign because they show the emotional side and they're very determined to win and complete their goals of helping that person. On the other hand, their darker traits are very dangerous. Think of it like a scorpion. You got that tail and the venom, and that can be very dangerous. On the other hand, if that scorpion is on your side, well, now you got a strong ally. You got those pincher claws, you got that tail. Yeah, that's someone you don't want to mess with. All right, now that we're done with the astrology, let's get into the mythology. Scorpio connects to the story of Orion. Orion is an interesting character because there's a lot of random stories about him that contradict each other. He's an older mythological character, and for that reason, his story has been told and retold in a lot of different ways. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be giving you what I believe to be the most true version of the story of Orion. First off, Orion's birth. There are 3 different stories here. I told you it's been retold a lot. The first story, and least likely, is he was kind of found amongst the earth as a foundling child who grew to be this giant muscular man. The second story is that he was born to 2 parents and happened to grow up big and strong. And both these are fine and make him more human, sort of. Probably the most likely one is the demigod story, where Poseidon, king of the oceans and god of the seas, ended up getting together with Uriel, not the Gorgon Uriel, but the daughter of King Minos. Ariel on the island of Crete, and she gave birth to Orion, who, having his father's blood in him, grew tall, very muscular and big, and had one extra bonus: he could walk on water. Pretty cool. His life is made up of him being a traveling hunter, slaying different animals. But what's interesting about that is there's no Hercules type stories. Like, there is no Nemean lion equivalent for Orion as he grows up and becomes a more renowned hunter. Meaning his hunting was for wild game, lions, tigers, elephants, that kind of stuff, and not really magical oriented monsters. Which seems kind of strange, because if you're going to make him the ultimate hunter, you should probably give him more than just one magical creature that he fought. Many of his stories have him pursuing different women between his hunts, sometimes getting drunk and having that inebriated state cause him trouble. A lot of trouble, including one time where he was cursed to be blind and had to go on an unnecessarily long side quest to get it uncursed. Nothing was really gained out of that, because it never changes Orion's real personality of being a big macho man who loves to hunt and loves himself some beautiful women. When we finally get to Orion's death, there are also 3 stories. Yeah, and even some of those stories have variants, because Orion can't be simple. All 3 stories connect to the goddess Artemis. She is the goddess of the moon and goddess of the hunt. And being the best hunter, she of course fell for him because he's a manly man and he's a super awesome hunter. And she's the goddess of the hunt. Why would she not want to be with a guy like that? So one story goes, while Artemis was away doing Artemis stuff, Orion stumbled across Eos, the goddess of the dawn, seduced her, and when Artemis saw this, she was so angry, she shot an arrow through Orion's heart. Because you don't anger a goddess. The second story is the more tragic version of this. In this version, Apollo is getting jealous and angry that his sister loves this demigod. So he comes down and starts up his evil scheme. He first goes to Orion and says, you know, yeah, you're tough and all, and you can walk on water, but how far can you swim? I bet you couldn't swim to that island way over there. No way you can do that. And Orion goes, I'll be there and back before night. And he goes off swimming. When Artemis comes around and goes, oh, where's Orion? Apollo goes, oh, he's off doing guy hunting stuff. Anyhow, speaking of hunting, I mean, you're a good archer and all, but you see that black blob way over there? It's probably some sort of whale or dolphin. I doubt you could ever hit that. And Artemis was like, oh, really, brother? Let me show you how good of an archer I am. And fired off her arrow and struck the creature right through the heart. When the body washed ashore, it was the body of Orion. And Artemis fell to her knees and wept uncontrollably for days. Either she or Zeus brought his body up into the heavens to turn him into a constellation in order to honor him not only as a hunter, but so that he could be closer to Artemis in his death. The final story, and the one that actually ties into Scorpio, which, yes, there's a version of this that he lives, but we're going to do the death version. In this version, Orion was hunting with Artemis, and Orion was showing off and bragging about his skills, eventually saying, I could hunt every animal on this planet, nothing can stop me, I'm so awesome. And depending on your telling of this, either Apollo is jealous about how much Artemis is fawning over Orion, Gaia is upset that Orion is just slaying her animals left and right, and Gaia, being the goddess of the earth and spirit of the earth itself, is the mother of all animals, and therefore, stop killing my babies. Number 3, they both get angry and conspire to take down Orion. Regardless of which one happens, the creation of a giant scorpion occurs, whether it is through Apollo's own magic as a god, Gaia birthing forth a giant scorpion, or them conspiring together to create a giant scorpion is created. And this is Scorpius, what the Scorpio sign is based off of. Orion sees the scorpion, understands how much of a challenge it is, and decides to go for it anyways. Because he's a hunter, and that's what hunters are gonna do. Their battle was supposed to be incredibly intense. Now here's the next part of divergence. In the first version, Orion and Scorpius battle for hours on end. Eventually, both the hunter and his quarry succumb to their wounds and die. A victory for the hunter, but also a victory for his enemies. In the second version, Artemis is also involved in the battle and fires off an arrow that hits Orion on accident. While Scorpius is defeated, Orion unfortunately succumbs to his wounds and dies within his beloved's arms. Regardless of which one you go with, in the Scorpio story, outside of one version where he does survive the hunt and then shortly thereafter is killed by either seducing Eos or having Artemis tricked into killing him, in most tellings, this is where Orion dies. Artemis is so sad that she has lost her beloved that his soul is brought into the heavens to become the great constellation of Orion, and so that he can always watch over his beautiful moon, Artemis. But because the Scorpion was such an impressive threat and monster, it was brought into the heavens as well to not only represent Orion's ability to slay this monster, but also the fact that the monster was so powerful and amazing that it must be known throughout history. But interestingly enough, their two constellations were put as far away from each other as possible so that they did not fight in the heavens, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Orion is a dude who sadly dies either during his greatest hunt or dies by the hand of the woman he loves, and in some cases, both. So instead of ending on a bummer fact, let's end on something fun. Puppies! There are two other constellations connected to Orion. Those are Canis Major and Canis Minor, the two dog constellations that are supposed to be his hunting dogs. What I'm trying to say is, Orion is up in the sky, amongst the stars, with his dogs, hunting eternally, and being with his beloved, darling Artemis. And that, my friends, is the story of Orion and the story of Scorpio. 2, 4, 1, plus puppies. So yes, a lot of energy there. I guess I tapped into that Scorpio energy and got the intensity up there at the end. It was a lot of fun learning about all this. I hope you enjoyed hearing the legend of Orion and Scorpio. If you are a Scorpio, let me know what you thought of this story and if you have any of those good or bad traits. Until next time, thank you for watching. Please let me know what legend you'd like me to explore next time in the comments below. And until then, I'm the Dapper Bard, and I'll see you at the tavern.